that it's generally very easy to get lost. It's very easy to take a position where you don't pick up any skills, but you get a new color golf shirt. You think about it. Think about how many times you've taken a job and then you found out the job that you've taken is basically the same job that you left. And it's just that you've maybe gotten a little bit more money, maybe you've gotten a little bit of different title or different bonus plan, but at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing. You're staying stagnant in your careers. So the concept behind is this, is that you have to continue towards, you got to keep those long-term career goals in mind, and you have to build a strategy to continue to invest in yourself to build those skills in order to get them.
All right, you got a plan. Next step, once you got a plan, is to build an organization. Standard company has a standard org chart. CEO in the middle, board of directors, and then functions, operations, general counsel, HR, product development, sales, marketing, finance, R&D, future investment. Same thing works for you. Same thing in career management that it is in business management. You have all the same functions. You have an ethical code. You have your own legal things that you have to deal with. We all have to do taxes every year. We all have to do, all that kind of stuff. You have your skills, your product. The product in your business is you. You want to develop the product, you develop yourself, you develop your skills. Then you have to sell yourself. You have to market yourself. You have to deal with money. And you have to deal with investment, research and development, new stuff.
So everybody in the room who thinks to themselves in their cubicle or in their office, they say, you know what, if I ran the company, I'd do it better. This is your chance to run your company. You all have the power to run your own business, and you control the product. You don't have to worry if the product doesn't have the right features, because you can fix them. You don't have to worry if the product works. Just look in the mirror. So all these components here is that you have the ability to take your career into your own hands, but it takes work. And I think that everybody's career, I think that the most important thing when you start thinking about your career is the foundation that you're going to build your career upon. And a lot of times, to me, that foundation in business is ethics. Is that, and does anybody have an own definition of business ethics or how they define it? Okay.
Don't do anything you don't want to see in the newspaper tomorrow.
Stay away from the New York Times. Next. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
like that one.
I think that those are all, real good things. Is that, I think that when it comes down to it, you really have to understand who you are. And this is one of my favorite poems. I kind of got hold of this early in life. And it really talks about being honest with yourself. Has anybody ever seen this poem? Everybody? Is this new or like an evolution or? Okay. Anyhow, I think that the idea is this, is that you have to understand who you are, and you have to understand what you're willing to do and what you're capable of. And that comes from internal soul searching. But that foundation will be the foundation that you can provide you the basis for all your decisions down the road in your business. You start thinking about your priorities. Anybody have a list of their personal priorities? Elements of it?
A little bit. One guy in the back of the room.
I'll tell you what my priorities are. It's probably easiest, right? My number one priority is my family. Number one thing. More important than anything in the world. Then the second thing would be providing for my family. So that might be money. Then there are other things. Health. I mean, a lot of people are driven by how they feel. I'm a little heavy. It's not that big of a deal for me right now. It might get bigger later on. But you start thinking about all these different things about what's important to you. And you start laying those things out and start basing your decisions upon those tenets, upon that foundation.
And what you ultimately have to do is you have to bring everything into alignment. The hardest challenge that I have in business is making sure that what we want to do as a company aligns with what we're actually doing. Who we want to be and where we want to go. And it comes back to the career plan, right? It comes back to the business plan. You set out a statement up front that says, this is what I'm going to do, this is who I'm going to be, this is how it's going to go. And especially in business, it's really easy to chase anything that comes along. Somebody comes along and offers you a deal that is not part of what you want to do. It's not part of what you want to build. It's not part of who you want to be. And you have to decide, is that deal worth taking to be misaligned, to be off the current path, to be taken aside? So you have to know your priorities, and you have to know what trade-offs you're willing to make and which ones you're not willing to make.
Well, a lot of times people have big goals, right? I mean, it's easy to have a big goal. But it's very hard to achieve the goal. The bigger the goal, the more work you have to put in. And the bigger the goal, the more people aspire to have that goal. I would tell you this, is that, it's one of these items where when you look at it, the more you're willing to sacrifice and put into something, probably the more reward you're going to get. So when you start thinking about that in terms of your career, and you start thinking about what you're willing to do, is that if getting to where you want to go requires you to travel around the world, and it's important for you to be home to pick up your kids from school, it's probably not going to align. So you have to figure out what's important to you and align it that way, and be honest with what you're willing to put in, because generally, what is it? Garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you start thinking about your career in those ways, you have to then, by aligning the direction you want to head with what's important to you, you're more apt to get better satisfaction. You're more apt to accomplish a realistic career goal.
So we'll ask the question, what matters to you? And when we did our one of our recent surveys, we asked this in a different way. What would you be willing to give up money for? I'd be willing to take less money for what? And what would it be for you? More training? More time at Blackhat? More time at home? Less travel? More health care? More responsibility? What would it be for you?
I thought that the results of this were interesting, right? I mean, we got it was like 460 respondents. We did this over 2 months in the spring of this year. And the number one answer, you guys will see the chart, is that 49% people, they said, I would give up money to save my ass. I thought that number would be bigger. I would give up salary to save my ass, generally speaking, but only 49%. So I thought that was a lot of confidence out there. But the only thing that was next was training and education. 47%, statistically almost a dead heat, that people said is that getting more skills, training, and education is almost equivalent to saving your ass.
We're an interesting industry like that.
And the other three, the next three things, between, were all real quality of life issues, right? I mean, basically work fewer hours, more vacation, which are to me, I think, are the same thing. And the ability to telecommute, have some better work-life balance. You think about it, though, is that when you start thinking about your career and salary, that people are driven by things that make them feel better, that get them smarter. But you have to identify what's important to you. That is your business. Each business has different priorities. You managing your career are going to have different priorities than your neighbor.
So once you've figured out priorities, it's time to talk about product development. It's time to talk about your skills. And this is where, you know, we're going to sound like the standard career people. We're going to talk about skills and certifications and all that kind of stuff. But it goes beyond just talking about skills. If you think about it, like running a business. How many of you guys are on the product side of this industry, work for a vendor, or have worked for a vendor at some point? Okay, about 10, maybe a little more %. So, product management, what do they do? What's a product manager do? Anyone? Right. They sit down and they figure out all the features of what a product needs. And it's not just, you know, the bells and whistles. It's not just how the product is developed, but it's the whole product. It's how do we support our customers? How do we go to market? How do we sell this? It's the whole package. It's the same thing when it comes to you. It's not just a question of what certs do I need and what book do I need to read this year, and do I go to Blackhat or do I go to CanSec West? It's everything about you. It's not just your technical skill, it's your strategic skill. It's your understanding of the industry. It's your understanding of the way that you interact with your business. It's the quote-unquote soft skills, your relationships with people, your interaction with your customers. Pop quiz. Who's the customer of You Inc.? What? Yeah. One thing that I will always say about a business is if you think everybody's your customer, you don't have a customer. Who's your customer? Today, who's your customer? What? Sorry, I can't hear. No, you're not. Well, you probably are your own customer. Your employer is your customer. Your employer is your customer. If you have a job, think about it. The customer is the person that pays you for what you do. Right? If I run a consulting company, my customer is the person that signs a contract with me and pays me to consult for them. Your employer is your customer. How do you interact with them? What do you bring to them? Is part of your product mix. If you're thinking of this as product management. Also, what kind of product are you going to be? Are you going to be a very boring, I say boring, very, standard stock, I wear a suit every day product? Or are you going to show up to work with blue hair? Every product is different. And you see this if you look at products through the market. It's part of the brand identity. It's part of the product identity. And you have to make all of these decisions about your product. The nice thing about it is you can upgrade that at any time. And we'll talk more about that later when we get into R&D.
When you start thinking about your skill matrix, right? I mean, we all have very hard skills. We're good at technology. We understand risk management. We understand frameworks. But we start thinking about a skill matrix and start thinking about the skill matrix as not just your experience and your skills, but the ability to correlate those skills and then to communicate it to others that can make a difference. So it's the combination of understanding who you are, what you're doing, and your ability to then leverage these experiences to build a case to make it that your product is a great product. You have to build these cases. So when you start thinking about your career, start thinking about leveraging your experiences on top of each other. Because when you come down to it is that you eventually want to get to a point where to build these skills,